Inside your body right now, there's a process that finds disease cells, including cancer cells, and literally consumes them, almost like Pac-Man. This process breaks damaged cells down to the molecular level and then reuses those same building blocks to create healthier cellular components. It is one of the most powerful natural anti-cancer mechanisms known to science. In fact, the discovery of this process was recognized with a Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine in 2016. Dr. William explains that this remarkable process is called autophagy. Many people believe it only begins after several days of fasting or extreme dieting, but that simply isn't true. By the end of this video, Dr. William will reveal a discovery that changes what most people think they know about activating autophagy and why the less obvious triggers are often even more powerful than the obvious ones when it comes to cancer prevention. The word autophagy literally means self-eating. Here's how it works. Inside every cell are tiny structures that function as internal quality control inspectors. When autophagy is activated, these structures move throughout the cell, searching for damaged proteins, worn-out energy-producing structures, and cells that have begun to grow abnormally. They surround this damaged material with a protective membrane, transport it to the cell's recycling center, and break it down into raw molecular components that can be reused to build healthy new structures. In the context of cancer, this process is enormously important because cancer does not suddenly appear out of nowhere. It begins with a series of small cellular mistakes that gradually push a healthy cell toward abnormal behavior. Autophagy is one of the body's primary defense systems for identifying these early problems and correcting them before they develop into something much more serious. In other words, autophagy is one of the body's most important natural mechanisms for preventing cancer from developing. However, there is one critical point that most people completely overlook. Autophagy does not operate at full capacity all the time. It is switched on by very specific biological signals, and modern lifestyles suppress many of those signals every single day without people even realizing it. So, how can we reactivate those signals and allow autophagy to quietly work in the background? According to Dr. William, the first non-obvious strategy is something known as protein cycling. Fasting activates autophagy because it lowers insulin levels and switches on an important cellular energy sensor called AMPK. But there is a second pathway that very few people ever discuss. Your cells constantly monitor protein availability through a signaling pathway known as mTOR. When mTOR detects abundant protein, it suppresses autophagy and sends cells the message to grow. Cancer cells take advantage of this growth signal more aggressively than almost any other type of cell. In fact, overactive mTOR signaling is one of the most frequently altered pathways found across human cancers. When mTOR senses that protein availability is low, it shifts the cell into recycling mode by activating autophagy to remove accumulated cellular debris. Research published in the journal Cell Metabolism found that periodic protein restriction activated autophagy just as powerfully as calorie restriction while independently suppressing mTOR activity across multiple tissues. The practical takeaway is surprisingly simple. One day each week, eat less protein than you normally would. Focus primarily on vegetables, fruits, and whole grains with only a small amount of protein. During the remaining days of the week, consume adequate protein to support healthy muscle maintenance. The key anti-cancer signal is not permanent protein restriction, but the healthy cycling between higher and lower protein intake. The second powerful way to activate autophagy is through heat stress, something many people have never associated with cancer prevention. When your body is exposed to significant heat, your cells activate a protective mechanism known as the heat shock response. Part of this response involves a dramatic increase in autophagy, specifically to eliminate the damaged proteins produced by heat stress. Heat shock proteins generated during this response also help direct the immune system toward cancer cells. As autophagy clears away heat-damaged cellular debris, it exposes abnormal markers on the surface of unhealthy cells, making them easier for the immune system to recognize and destroy. A landmark study published in JAMA Internal Medicine found that people who used a sauna regularly, between 4 and 7 sessions per week, experienced approximately a 40% reduction in all-cause mortality, with lower cancer mortality believed to be one of the contributing factors. For practical application, Dr. William recommends aiming for sauna sessions lasting 15 to 20 minutes at temperatures of approximately 80 to 100 degrees Celsius, repeated 4 to 7 times per week. Before we get into the final 3 non-obvious triggers of autophagy, if this information is already changing the way you think about autophagy and cancer prevention, Dr. William would appreciate it if you subscribed. It truly helps share this information with the people who need it most. Trigger number 3 is actually a combination of 2 powerful compounds, spermidine and urolithin A. Spermidine is naturally found in wheat germ, mushrooms, aged cheese, and legumes. It directly activates autophagy by switching off an enzyme that normally suppresses this important cellular recycling process. In the context of cancer prevention, spermidine-induced autophagy has been shown to selectively target cells that accumulate abnormal proteins, which is one of the defining characteristics of early precancerous cells. A 20-year prospective human study found that higher dietary intake of spermidine was independently associated with lower cancer mortality. The second compound, urolithin A, is produced by beneficial gut bacteria after they metabolize natural compounds found in pomegranates, walnuts, and berries. Urolithin A activates a specialized form of autophagy called mitophagy, which specifically removes damaged mitochondria, the energy-producing structures inside cells. Damaged mitochondria generate excessive oxidative stress and abnormal metabolic activity, creating conditions that precancerous cells exploit to survive and multiply. Removing these damaged mitochondria eliminates one of cancer's earliest biological advantages. Excellent food sources of spermidine, or the precursors needed to produce urolithin A, include wheat germ, mushrooms, soybeans, green peas, pomegranates, walnuts, and raspberries. The fourth trigger is similar to the second one on our list, but instead of heat, it involves cold exposure. Cold exposure activates autophagy through an entirely different biological pathway. Exposure to cold causes a surge in norepinephrine, which activates AMPK, suppressing the mTOR growth pathway that many cancer cells rely upon for continued growth and survival. Reduced mTOR activity means fewer growth signals are available for abnormal cells. Beyond suppressing mTOR, cold exposure also mobilizes natural killer cells, the immune system's primary cancer surveillance cells. Autophagy works together with this immune response by exposing abnormal markers on unhealthy cells, making them easier for natural killer cells to recognize and eliminate. The simplest way to practice this is by ending your morning shower with 1 to 2 minutes of genuinely cold water. Cold plunges are another option, but finishing your regular shower with cold water is far more practical for most people. Daily consistency appears to produce greater autophagy activation and stronger immune enhancement than occasional, more intense cold exposure. Trigger number 5, and perhaps the least glamorous on the list, is improving the quality of your sleep. This is one of the most overlooked strategies for supporting autophagy. During deep sleep, your body performs autophagy at some of its highest levels, not only in the brain, but throughout virtually every tissue in the body. This is also when the immune system performs one of its most comprehensive inspections for cellular abnormalities and when natural killer cells patrol tissues searching for cells that have begun dividing abnormally. Research published in Nature Reviews Cancer found that circadian rhythm disruption, including irregular sleep schedules, night shift work, and chronic sleep deprivation, was independently associated with significantly higher rates of multiple types of cancer. In other words, the quality of your sleep can directly influence your long-term risk of developing certain cancers. The best way to support a healthy circadian rhythm is to maintain a consistent bedtime and wake-up time every day, including weekends. Aim to keep both within approximately a 45-minute window each day. This is one of the most effective ways to stabilize your body's internal biological clock. For additional support, Dr. William notes that magnesium glycinate may help improve sleep quality while promoting overall relaxation. The encouraging news is that approximately 80% of adults worldwide do not obtain enough magnesium through diet alone. If you're looking for a high-quality and affordable magnesium glycinate supplement, Dr. William has included a link in the video description below. Now, let's return to the research finding mentioned at the beginning of this video. It challenges the common belief that prolonged fasting is the primary way to activate autophagy. To be clear, prolonged fasting absolutely does activate autophagy, and it can be an effective strategy. However, current scientific literature suggests that the highest levels of everyday baseline autophagy are achieved by activating this process through multiple complementary mechanisms rather than relying on prolonged fasting alone. Researchers estimate that between 45 and 50% of all cancers are associated with modifiable lifestyle factors. That means the choices you make every single day may significantly influence whether cancer develops or never gains a foothold in the first place. The goal is to consistently support autophagy by combining several of the strategies discussed throughout this video. If you'd like to explore this topic in greater depth and learn how to optimize your metabolic health while reducing your risk of chronic disease, Dr. William invites you to download his free 5-day resource, The Metabolic Blueprint. It explores these concepts in far greater detail than any single video can. You'll find the link in the description below. In the next video, Dr. William discusses the most common everyday foods that directly fuel cancer cells, foods you may want to avoid. If you'd like to discover what those foods are, be sure to watch the next video.